Hey, Anchored listeners. Tom Brown III here. We are out here in Oregon in the lovely Pacific Northwest. And today we are going to explore how to properly move through the woods. We live in a very fast-paced, modern society. And many people who go to the woods on the weekend and their off time find that they don't really ever see any animals or birds. And the reason why is that they move the wrong way. So I'm going to teach you some different movement techniques on how to not be an alien invader when we enter the wilderness, but to move more with the ebb and flow of what's going on around us. If you think back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors, here were small groups of people that had to navigate, the nearly pathless wilderness. They had to be stealthy. If they weren't, they wouldn't be efficient hunters, and their genetic code would not get passed down the line. Not only that, but if they were too noisy in certain situations, we might have gotten eaten by something else. So therefore, here you have this group of people who were moving silently across the landscape. Modern humans do not move that way. And long story short, the reason is, a long time ago we invented something called agriculture. And as we moved from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle to a more agrarian lifestyle, we didn't have to navigate the pathless wilderness. We didn't have to worry so much about being able to stalk up close to a deer. We were growing a lot of our own food. We were domesticating our animals. So therefore, that kind of pure form of stealthy movement that we once possessed, we didn't need to rely on that so much anymore. We started to clear paths, we started to make trails, we started to move obstacles out of our way. An agrarian-based lifestyle is a lot more fast-paced than a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. So therefore, you have to move quicker to get from point A to point B. Flash forward to modern society, we live in a very high-speed, crazy society where we have deadlines. We have to get up, we have to get to work by a certain time, and we move very fast. So the problem is, you get your time off and you go to the woods from town or from the city, and we're just moving way too fast and creating way too much of a disturbance. We are literally an alien invader. So my goal with this video is to teach you how to move a bit differently, teach you how to slow yourself down and blend in with your surroundings, to move with the ebb and flow of the landscape and not against it. And you'll find that when you adjust your movement forms a little bit, all of a sudden this amazing natural world will open up around us. But we're never going to get there if we continue to move the way we do out in society when we are in the woods. All right, so in order for me to teach you how to move properly, I first want to talk about what is wrong with the way we as modern humans move. So I want everyone to imagine, a person standing on a street corner. They're not moving at all, and they're about to initiate forward movement. And I encourage you to do some people watching on your spare time, on your lunch break, and watch how people move. It's really quite fascinating to study movement, and it's something I'm really passionate about. So when a modern human gets ready to initiate forward movement, what they typically do is they throw their head forward, and then in a blind panic, their body is trying to catch up with their head. Now, this is bad for several reasons. When we move in that way, when we throw our head forward, we are making our center of gravity our head, and we are incredibly off balance. So that modern person, their head goes forward, and their body is trying to catch up with their head. In order for this to happen, that modern human is taking these very long strides, and they're coming down with very heavy heel-to-toe footfalls. It's one of the reasons why a lot of our modern footwear has that raised heel on it. We're hitting very hard and causing a lot of damage to our bodies. It's amazing how many people have bad ankles and bad knees and shin splints and bad lower backs. A lot of that comes from just improper movement. Another thing modern humans do that is really not conducive to existing in the wilderness is just simply moving way too fast. I like to tell people, if I could give people one piece of advice when it comes to stalking and movement, it would be to simply just slow yourself down. When you're in the woods, move half the speed you would normally move when walking from your car to your job. If you're a really fast person, move a quarter of the speed that you would normally move. We need to learn to move with the ebb and flow of nature. Nature moves slowly as a whole, and we need to match our movements. So as I said, that modern human, the head goes forward, the body's trying to catch up, and we're just making these really loud, heavy heel-to-toe footfalls. The really bad consequence of this is, one of our subconscious mind's primary goals is to protect our body and keep it safe. And when we are walking the way a modern human does, we are committing all of our weight to our steps before we know what we are stepping on. So therefore, in order to compensate and to protect our body, our brain constantly keeps our eyes at a 45-degree angle to the ground in front of us. It's no wonder you don't see any animals. I tell people often, go to a park that's busy with people and sit just 10 or 15 feet off of a trail, and people will walk by you all day long. You could even have a neon green shirt on and people will walk right by you because they're moving too fast and they're always looking at the ground in front of us. So now what I want to do is I want to talk to you about a different form of movement, and this is going to be the way our hunter-gatherer ancestors moved. So the first thing I do when I want to shift from that hasty modern society movement to a more natural movement is I want to change my center of gravity, right? I don't want my head to be my center of gravity because I'm incredibly off balance. So what I do is instead of standing on straight legs, I bend my knees a little bit. When I bend my knees a little bit, I shift that center of gravity from up near my head to kind of an imaginary spot in the middle of your trunk, just above your pelvis. When I bend my knees and rest like this, I'm a lot more balanced. It's easier for me to breathe. I don't have as much tension in my back. So now, when I'm ready to initiate forward movement, instead of throwing my head forward like a modern human does, I instead imagine that there's a rope attached to that lowered center of gravity, and somebody on the other end of that rope is just gently pulling me along. Instead of taking the very long strides that a modern human takes and hitting with those heavy heel-to-toe footfalls, I want to shorten my stride. I want to shorten my stride by about half so that instead of hitting heel to toe, I can hit with the outside edge of my foot first. So my foot comes down, I hit with the outside edge of my foot. I roll my foot flat onto the ground. That would be position 2. Once I get to the end of position 2, that's when I'm slowly transitioning my weight into my next step. The real beautiful thing about this more natural form of movement is that I'm feeling what I'm stepping on before I'm committing my weight to it. And when I do that, all of a sudden, my eyes don't always need to be at a 45-degree angle to the ground in front of me. I can be looking around. Right? I'm using my feet as earthward antenna to talk to the ground, to relay information about what I'm stepping on, before I throw all my weight into it. And by doing this, so I'm shortening my stride, I'm going slower, as I said, half the speed you would normally move, if not a little bit slower, and I'm feeling what I'm stepping on with my feet before I'm committing my weight. Therefore, my eyes can be up and looking around. And all of a sudden, I go from being this modern human invader that's creating this incredible ruckus in the woods to being this slow, fluid-moving animal that's not creating as much of a disturbance. And it's much less noisy form of movement. It's much, much easier on your body. I have taught orthopedic surgeons over the years who have taken these movement skills back to their medical practices and helped people correct problems that they normally would have used surgery to correct, all by simply just changing the way we move a little bit. So yeah, just to reiterate, we slow down, we shorten our stride, we're relaxed. I like to think of the natural movement forms, the stalking and movement skills, as a moving meditation, where I'm looking, listening, and feeling to the landscape around me and matching my movements to that, as opposed to just clomping through, leaving a path of destruction in my wake.